listeners, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain Blended Podcast and founder of the Blended Pledge. We are back in my home studio. I had a great week out in LA, the beginning of the week at IANA Expo in Long Beach. And then I also attended the Summit of Greatness last weekend, which was a lot of fun. Now, today we've got some really big hot topics coming at you. We're going to be talking mostly about cybersecurity. And one angle that you may or may not have considered is that it could be used as a way to outperform your competitors and as to help you increase market share as well. Now, for anybody in the audience, I want to know where you're tuning in from. So make sure you put that in the comments and we can give you a bit of a shout out. Plus, if you have any questions, make sure to put those in the comments as well. All right, but without further ado, I have to talk a little bit about our show sponsor. So are you ready to find your community? If you're struggling to find a supply chain community of like-minded professionals where you can level up, network, and learn about best practices from experts in supply chain, professional development, and marketing, look no further. We created the Secret Society of Supply Chain to provide a safe space, a community for everyone in the industry. We offer unique opportunities for everyone to connect and grow in our three distinct value pack communities: the supply chainers, women in supply chain, and the creative room. From the learn at your own pace, content rich approach of the supply chainers to the empowering community focused space of women in supply chain and the marketing mastermind of the creative room, we mean it when we say there's truly a place for everyone. So head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com and find out which membership is right for you. We just launched our first cohort of the creative room yesterday and everybody loved it. So I can't wait to do some more and get some more marketing professionals in these cohorts because we're going to be able to rock the industry from a marketing perspective. All right, let's find out what is happening on Let's Talk Supply Chain. So episode 426, we are on our road to episode 500. I cannot believe it. But this one is discovering the truth about digitalization in container shipping in 2024 with DCSA. Now, they came out with a report, and we talked all about this report on this episode. So you don't want to miss it because you want to find out from a benchmarking perspective where you stand, how people are thinking about it, what they're thinking about technology. So highly recommend you go and check this out either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to the show. Now, tomorrow, Christine Barnhart is going live at 10 a.m. Eastern to talk about a journey of innovation and customer excellence around packaging. Now, packaging is really important. It can increase your parcel spend. It can increase all sorts of things if you do not get it right. So I highly recommend that you click the attend button, even if you can't attend live. We'll send you the recording, but definitely take a look at this particular episode. Then on Friday, Eric Johnson's going live for LogTech Live, Shipping Sync, aligning technology and logistics, which is what we all need. So again, click the attend button. I'll send you the recording if you can't attend live. And then drum roll, please. This is our brand new show called On the Margins. MVK and I are co-hosting this show, and it comes out Thursday, September 26th at 10 a.m. Eastern. And our first guest is Salesforce, and we're talking about the number one thing companies need to combat: shrinking margins. You're not going to want to miss this one. The nuggets, the insights are going to be amazing. So again, click the attend button and I'll send you the recording. Next, where am I going to be? Well, I'm going to be at the Gain Summit September 25th through 26th in Chicago, and then I'll stay in Chicago and be at Inland Conference September 30th through October 2nd. So hopefully I'll see you there. If you are in Chicago, let me know. We are doing a Woman in Supply Chain dinner while we're there. And of course, the NMFTA conference, which we're going to be talking more about in just a little bit, October 27th through October 29th in Cleveland, Ohio. Then we've got the Supply Chain Excellence Awards, which are in Miami. The Woman in Supply Chain Forum, November 12th and 13th in Atlanta. Those awards just came out yesterday. The list came out yesterday. Congratulations to everybody on that list who won this year. And I can't wait to see you all in November. And then, of course, we've got Manifest 2025 happening February 10th through 12th in Vegas. And it's going to be at the Venetian this time. Last but not least, I want to just mention to go and subscribe to our Let's Talk Supply Chain YouTube page. This is where all of our live shows, all of our live webinars are stored. So, and we talk about all sorts of different topics. And we've got them into easy to use playlists for you. So go and check it out. We've got podcast episodes, live shows, we've got shorts, all sorts of great stuff for you over there on our YouTube. All right. Without further ado, it is time to bring up our guest for today. Hello, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing? Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. Now we are talking about one of the hottest topics that's on everybody's mind. I think it's keeping people up at night, cybersecurity, and we're going to be talking all about that on the show today. But before we do that, can you introduce yourself? Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what does NMFTA stand for? What do they do? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I'm Joe Orr. I am COO at NMFTA, and I am responsible for cybersecurity and also responsible for the digitalization effort, as well as the products that we deliver at NMFTA, and also leading the effort in classification reimagination at NMFTA.
I love that. Classification reimagination. I feel like there needs to be a rap started about that.
There you go.
All right. So let's talk about the poll. Now, we ask everybody a question every single Wednesday morning over on the Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn page. Now, the question we asked everybody, what is the biggest cybersecurity challenge your organization faces today? Now, 41% of you said ransomware attacks. 27% of you said employee training. Now, that's a big one. 17% of you said managing third-party vendors, and 16% of you said securing legacy systems. Joe, what do you think of these results? Were they surprising? You know, did you want to see one a little bit more ahead of another? What do you think about this?
I think they're spot on. When we talk to people in the industry, this is exactly what we hear.
Okay.
It's ransomware that's keeping people up at night.
Mhm.
It's what makes headlines. Two other things that jump out is how interrelated these all are. And
Mhm.
so when you look at ransomware, you think about how do people get into the systems? And it's through the legacy systems, it's through the third parties, and it's due to lack of employee training in a lot of areas. So all of these are really related. And so I know we're going to talk about the conference, but these are all things we're going to really hit on the conference. In this year's conference, really focus on bringing the carriers and the people that are responsible for making sure this ransomware doesn't happen, and talk about, well, what do you do if it does happen? And what's your
Mhm.
business continuity plan? So the poll wasn't surprising, but it was kind of interesting to see what keeps people up at night. And it does reflect whether you're a small carrier, a small shipper, or what your size is. What keeps you up at night's the same.
Well, one of the concerning things for me was the employee training, because you get through legacy systems, but also they get through because the teams aren't properly trained on looking out for red flags. So I recently did some cybersecurity training with my team, and we went through sort of this like gamification type course. It was actually a lot of fun because it was gamified.
Right.
But my team came back to me and they were like, oh, there were some things that I knew, but then there was a lot of things that I didn't know and that I need to think about in my business or what I'm doing for Let's Talk Supply Chain. And I'm going to make some of those changes. And so there's a lot of red flags that we might know about or we might think we know all about, but then there's a lot that we don't or haven't even considered.
Well, the part of the challenge is the bad actors, the ones that are sending the emails. The
Mhm.
reason we're needing the training, they're getting smarter and they're
I know.
getting better and they're getting more organized. I always laugh. You see the hacker with a hood on.
Yep. I mean, it's
That's
going to come up in the first article, but yeah.
yeah, it's that's not the real that these are organized attacks. And
Mhm.
with AI, the translation is better. So you used to be able to look for broken English. That
Mhm.
really doesn't apply anymore. So the
Right.
training has to be better
Yeah.
and you have to really pay more attention than what you had to in the past.
Well, and you have to test your teams too. So
Yeah.
you need to be the one that is sending it to the team and seeing how they respond before something actually happens in real life. I think that's really important. All right. Now, before we get to our first article, why don't you give us a bit of a market update? What else is NMFTA working on? You talk to a lot of people, you talk to a lot of
Mhm.
members. What are people thinking about? What are they talking about right now?
So one of the things I mentioned in the intro is something. So NMFTA stands for National Motor Freight Traffic Association, and one of the big things we are responsible for is classification. And it's been a very long time since classification has changed. And we're doing something called classification reimagination.
Mhm,
And so we really took a look at how do we simplify classification. And so we're launching that in August of 2025.
mhm,
And so that's a huge effort. So that involves 3PLs, that involves shippers and carriers. So that's something you definitely want to look at. We've got webinars, we've got products coming out that support that. So that's something you definitely want to go to nmfta.org and take a look at and really follow NMFTA because that's going to impact everybody in the industry in a very positive way.
and why will it impact the industry in a positive way? Why should people be looking out for this report?
So classification has been something that's been, I think, very confusing, and so it's caused
Mhm,
some confusion between shippers and carriers. And what this does is simplify classification, and so you get less friction between the shippers and the carriers and less reways, less conflict. And so it improves the operation, it improves the operations and reduces the conflict between the shipper and the carrier because it's much more easier to understand and much more straightforward because we simplified it. And then we're going to launch a new product that's an improved product on what we have today, where it's much easier to use to classify your freight.
mhm.
And so with that, it's a better user experience. So it's
Yeah.
easier to classify your freight also.
Well, and who doesn't want reduction in friction, right? We want to reduce
Exactly.
that blame game in transportation. So I think we're all looking forward to that. All right. Thank you so much for that
Mhm.
update. All right. We're going to get to our first article. Now, I want to talk about this. Adrian Gonzalez put this out. I think this was a few months ago. And it talks about cybersecurity is a problem in supply chain, but it's also an opportunity. And he quotes John Adams, every problem is an opportunity in disguise. Now, he goes on to talk about how Google acquired Wiz for $23 billion. And I believe they are a cloud security company. And $23 billion, just to put it into perspective, is kind of the size of the cyber problem that we have across all industries. So you might think that's a big number, but it's really what we're looking at as cyber attacks continue to grow, what people are going to be paying out, and how much it's going to cost industry. They're talking about how 78% increase in breaches in 2023 and in supply chain or trucking and logistics. And that is higher than finance. And you would think that finance would be higher than logistics, supply chain, transportation, but it's not. We are the ones that are being targeted the most. Now, he goes on to give recommendations, but he also talks about an opportunity, which I will talk about in just a minute. But, Joe, what did you think about this article? What did you take away from it?
There's a lot that I took away from the article, but one of the things with cybersecurity, number one, it is competitive. You've got to really take a look at everything everybody else is doing. Um, Cybersecurity is also a team sport. Although we
Oh,
may be in competition with each other, it's a team sport. We've got to work
yeah.
together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also really looked at it it talked a lot about um, some of the background and the China perspective, which I found very interesting because
Uh-huh.
we're doing a webinar this week on China and the information it's collecting from the ports,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't done anything with it. So I think a lot of it is we don't quite know everything that's out there. And so,
Mm-hmm.
with cyber, one of the old adages is you don't have to outrun the bear, but you have to outrun everybody else that you're with, but not necessarily outrun the bear. But cyber in supply chain, it's right out there. It's right up there with healthcare. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
one of the top two industries we really got to focus on, and I think the article really made that point.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key points in this particular article for me was that if you can prevent an attack better than your competitor, you can outperform your competitors and increase your market share. Now, I wanted to bring that up because a lot of times we think about cybersecurity as a cost center, right? We have to spend this money to prevent something that hasn't even happened yet. Um, and a lot of people are looking at it as sort of, just another thing on our to do list that we have to do and we have to prevent. But if we turn that on its head and change the mindset around it and think about the money that we are investing in preventing a cybersecurity attack will help us outperform our competitors and increase market share. Now that's a win-win.
Oh, absolutely. And I looked at notes from a cyber conference we did a couple years ago, and the number one thing was, how do I talk my CEO into investing in cybersecurity?
Right.
And now I think we get less of that question. And I think it was a thing in LinkedIn where after the attack, the CEO is handing blank checks out,
Right.
but we have to be proactive about that.
Yeah. Well, and if it can be a competitive advantage, why not? There's your in to talk to the CEO
Yeah,
about why
exactly.
to invest in it. All right. Let's get to it's not really an article. It's we want to talk about your cybersecurity conference that is coming up at the end of October in Cleveland. Now, I'm going to be there and I'm going to be reporting live for NMFTA. This is going to be my second year. And let me tell you, I attended and reported sort of live from the show last year. I learned so much. It's one of the reasons why I decided to do the cybersecurity training for my team over the last year because it really got me thinking, even as a small business, right? My team is made up of mostly freelancers. They have their own business, but at the end of the day, we're all interconnected and we all have a duty to not only our companies, my company, the clients, et cetera. And so we need to know how we can be secure in our own businesses and for everybody else since we are so well connected. So talk to me a little bit about what people can expect from this conference and why they should attend.
Okay. So this is a conference that's open to everybody, right? It's not just open to members of NMFTA. And the agenda this year is really geared to you people in the industry hearing from others in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that you go to where you hear from just governmental agencies or people that aren't carriers or aren't shippers or aren't 3PLs. We really focused on, let's hear from people like um, people that have walked the walk, talk the talk. And so that's where you'll hear from the people like Warner, you'll hear from Estes, you'll hear from Ward Trucking. You'll really hear from people that are in the industry. Of course, you'll also hear from people um, that are from the White House, from CISA, but you'll also hear a lot from people in the industry. In addition, the things that you heard last year, like the academia updates and the research that we're doing, you'll hear a lot of that. And you'll see a mix of not only things that are enterprise, but also asset. And I think that's the only conference where you get this combination of things focused on the truck, the trailer, but also the back office. And we're really focused on all sides of trucking companies. So whether it's 5,000 trucks, 500 trucks, or you're an owner operator, we're really focused on the problems that hit everybody. And
Hmm.
so, it's really, we're really excited about it because like I said, it's really especially that last session. I think that's the one I'm most excited about because we're getting the carriers together and we're going to ask the questions. It's not, hey, if you ever are impacted, it's like when you're impacted, what are the best practices? And we're also doing things that you can walk away with and apply it to your company, like tabletop exercises that create business continuity plans.
Hmm.
I think actually having something tangible that you walk away with is extremely important. So we're very
Yes.
excited about the conference.
I am all about it. And for it to be, for freight exclusively, you mentioned trucking, but I think this really is for anybody in supply chain
Mhm.
that has product, that is moving product. And you're only good as what you know right now. And I'm telling you, last year I learned so much, and I'm pretty sure that there's things that you probably haven't thought of in your cybersecurity plan. And if you don't have a plan, you definitely need to go to find out how to make a plan. But there's definitely things that are going to be opening up your minds about what you need to be looking at and what you need to take back to your teams to make sure that you are secure, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And people think they may have a plan, but then when it happens, they realize they may not. So just working with and talking through to their peers
Hmm.
really makes them better understand, okay, I need to think about my contracts. I need to think about legal. I need to think about communication. I need to think about everything. So it's not
Yeah.
just the technical piece of it, it's across the board.
Well, it's even an escalation plan. Like when it happens, who tells who first? And when do you go to the FBI? Because at some
Yeah.
point, you have to go to the FBI when these things are happening. Plus, there's only certain things that you do and share at the conference that you don't actually share publicly. I remember, I think there was one instance or one presentation where it was very like nobody can take any pictures, and we're going to be talking about something that we only want to stay in this room. I unfortunately was not part of that presentation, but I thought that was really interesting. And then also you had a truck demonstration last year, and it
Hmm.
blew my mind on how these hackers can actually get into a truck while it's moving or while it's stationary, and really can impact not only the life of the driver, obviously the capital that's in the product that's in the back of that truck, and so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially that's why we do a lot with tanker. When you think about it, that can be used as a weapon. So we do a
Right.
lot with tanker, and what we do is we work with OEMs. We don't want to go out there and say, okay, here's how you do it, and just scare everyone. We really want to work on education, but then turn around and work with the OEMs to close the loops. It's not
Mhm.
to scare anyone.
Yeah. No. The demonstrations are really important because, like I said, you only know what you know at that point.
Exactly.
And you want to be able to think about and plan for all the contingencies or as much as possible. All right, let's get to our last article. We've got about 5 minutes to talk about this one. So, this particular article came out in July. I don't know if any of you saw this, but this is another risk and another threat that I wanted to bring to your attention. We're talking a lot about cargo theft. I know we talked about it on an episode recently over the last couple of weeks. It's a topic that is coming up more and more and more. But this is a different sort of take on this. This article talks about how 50 loads were taken hostage in 10 days in a coordinated attack. Now, this is the first time I'm hearing of something like this, but it looks like this is a way, or this particular example was a way for them to be able to get money back that they thought was owed to them. And they acted like a truck broker. Now, I don't know all of the details. I highly recommend that you go and check out this article to really read up on it so that you can better protect yourself against this type of threat or risk. But I want to bring Joe into the conversation because this really is tied to cargo theft, right? Which also has a bit of a cybersecurity component, but also something that I'm sure you talk a lot about at NMFTA. So talk to me about what you thought about this article. One of the takeaways before you do that for me was vet your carriers, right? Like really vet your carriers because otherwise something like this could possibly happen. All right, Joe, what do you think?
So it was interesting when this came out. I'd not heard of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I called a couple carriers, and they said, "Yeah, it happens. We just don't report it." And
Wow.
and then I actually when it I had not talked about it, and in preparation for this, I reached out to two pretty small carriers, and they said, you know what? Both of them said this has happened within the last 3 weeks. I said, do
Wow.
you report it? They're like, no, we don't report it. I said, do you
Mhm.
pay it? They're like, yeah, we paid it. And so this happens more than what you think. Now, they don't do business with them again, but it does happen, which is interesting. And I think that's cargo theft in general. A
Mhm.
lot of cargo theft doesn't get reported. There's not a clearinghouse for cargo theft.
Mhm.
And there's several different flavors of cargo theft. There's, with the pilferage where it's partial, but when you first think of cargo theft, you think of the old westerns, you know, where
Mhm.
they're intercepting the truck, and that's
Yeah.
how they're doing it. But it's a coordinated effort. It's like cyber. These are organized people,
Mhm.
typically foreign nationals, that have an operation that actually intercept the cargo. And part of the problem is they don't punish them. They may get out the next day and go do it again, and
Mhm.
it's very hard to catch them, and it's even harder to persecute them.
Yeah.
And so cargo theft is really, really on the rise, and it's very hard to catch them. And so, there's a lot of things that we're doing in the cyber arena to help with it. It's kind of the
Mhm.
cousin within cybersecurity. And so, part of the thing within the polls that you look at, like look-alike domains, which has
Mhm.
been a problem. And like you said, know who you're doing business with,
Mhm.
and also make sure you know from a brokerage perspective, and make sure you know where your truck and trailer is. And again, back to your poll, educate your drivers, not just on cybersecurity, but on the red flags on what to look for within cargo theft.
Well, and I think one key point here is that it's really costly for everybody involved, right? The cargo theft, obviously you're going through insurance and things like that, but your insurance rates go up and all sorts of things. Plus you have to buy product again, you've got to wait and there's so many different dominoes that sort of fall over when this happens. But we talk a lot about rates, right? And right
Right.
now rates are extremely low. And my concern around that is, do you want to pay on the back end because you're not vetting carriers and there could be some cargo theft and your product could be taken? Or do we want to increase the rates and make sure that the carriers have the margins that they need to not only vet their drivers, but vet the other brokerages that they're using? Because at the end of the day, not everybody has trucks for every single lane. And so it's a coordinated, collaborative industry, and they need to have the margins to do what they need to do to not only secure themselves from a cybersecurity standpoint, but obviously secure cargo as well. And we need to think about these things because it's either going to cost us on the front end or it's going to cost us on the back end. And we need to make sure we take care of everybody in the industry. I'm just saying, because we talk about rates all the time, and it's super important that we make sure that everybody's got some margins to be able to protect each other. Anyways,
Absolutely.
we've come to the end of the show. Joe, thank you so much for joining me here at Thoughts and
Thank
Coffee.
you.
Thanks to everybody in the industry. I hope to see you in Cleveland at the Cybersecurity Conference. If you're there, make sure to come up and say hi. Have a great week, and I will see you in 2 weeks because I am traveling.